I think you guys know as well as I do that the mental health crisis that we're dealing with in our world today has reached epidemic proportions. And I feel like we're normalizing talking about it just a little bit. I think COVID helped with that actually because it reared its ugly head in so many ways. And we didn't have any choice but to talk about it. But I still think there's more work to be done. But so many people struggle with it. And it's it's sad. And it's amazing to me that there are not more organizations that are helping, especially kids, deal with this. But my guest today has taken on that task head on because of an experience that she had inside her own family. And so my guest is Amy Theisen Walz. She's an avid pup lover. She advocates for the underdog. She's a vocalist and a speaker, and her mission is to create non-judgmental zones by personally understanding the many trials of students today in schools and understanding what they experience with a mental health diagnosis, anxiety, depression, bullying, etc. Amy began sharing the unconditional love of her therapy pup, Willow Grace, in the Monticello Middle School in October of 2020. And after piloting her program for 2 years, they became recognized as a 501c3 nonprofit in June of 2022. So we have an amazing story that unfolds in our conversation today, all about Willow and about the really ministry that Amy and Willow are able to do with these kids in schools today and how the program has grown by the grace of God. And so, y'all, I'm just going to ask, open your hearts. And if the Lord is tugging on you by the end of this episode to sow a seed into her nonprofit, I will leave a link in the show notes for you to be able to do so. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Amy. Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no-nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, exploring how intimately faith applies to every part of your life, and how you can live that faith every single day in the marketplace. I felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of the few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Her Faith at Work. I'm so glad that you are here today. And I have the privilege and honor of introducing you to our third nonprofit. I'm just going to say partner. I'm going to speak this into existence. I'm going to say our third nonprofit partner that we are going to come alongside. And I really feel like this is going to touch your heart and you're going to want to get involved with this. I know that it did. My conversation today is going to be with Amy, and we got connected through a podcast group, and I read about what she does in her nonprofit and literally was brought to tears and thought that I've got to have this woman on my podcast. So, Amy, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and tell them what you do?
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Amy Theisen Walz, and I am, gosh, I was going to say my age. You don't need to know my age. I live in Monticello, Minnesota, and I am the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called You're Not Alone.
And so tell us about You're Not Alone, because it is, I personally have never run across a nonprofit quite like yours with a heart for what you specifically do. So tell us about that.
Well, thank you for saying that. That touches me to hear that. So what we do is we're a mental health nonprofit, and we utilize therapy dogs in programming going into schools at no charge to the school. And we create kind of a respite for children. Every school does it a little different, but we go in 2 hours a week, same dog, creating that dog becomes like a social emotional mascot for the children.
Mm-hmm.
And we have many ways that we do that, but really it's a way of creating conversation with kids, not from a staff member's perspective, but as a caring community member.
Mm.
And we are finding that creating this safe space where this animal is present and everyone is put more at ease, kids are really opening up about their struggles.
Mm.
And quite honestly, adults do the same thing when they're in this environment.
I'm sure that's true.
Yes,
I
it's
think,
amazing.
yeah, any dog lover is shaking their head right now. Well, cat lover too. I mean, who am I? I don't have cats. My mother was always really allergic, but my daughters have cats and they love them. And so I would just say animals in general. I am a horse
Yes.
person, so
Oh,
I think God, when God created animals, he did it with a very specific purpose and they're beautiful. They're
I
beautiful.
absolutely can't agree more. And we talk a ton about unconditional love in our program
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
that's what they provide.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me how you got started in this because I know that there's a backstory to this. And I think nobody sets out to just start a nonprofit because they want to, because it's not something that's easy, right? This is
No,
something that's difficult to do.
it really.
And you really have to have a passion for it. And so tell us a little bit about how you got started with this.
Yeah. So in 2007, we had a little puppy save our family.
Mm,
And a lot of people say, what do you mean save your family? So in 2005, I finally got help for what I call the invisible disease of mental health, mental illness, when my depression and anxiety became so severe that I became anorexic.
mm,
I was in my mid to later 30s. And what that whole episode of living with a mom that had mental illness and perfectionism and, to the outside world, we had it all. But when you close the door in your house and people don't see the letdown of the exhaustion of keeping that facade upright and in forefront of people's minds, what that does when people go home and the
mm,
stress and anxiety in my family was tremendous.
I
We had
bet.
3 kids, and they were elementary, middle school at that point. And I got help. So for 2 years, I did therapy, and it's the best present I could have ever given myself.
Yes.
And I thought I had hit rock bottom. Well, fast forward in 2007, and our then sixth grade, 11-year-old son attempted suicide.
Mm,
And we didn't know why, other than maybe it was the stress of living with a mom that had been ill. There was some other things going on. And we got him a therapy appointment. And what came out in that therapy appointment was very scary.
mm,
Still no answers why. And that evening, he tried to take his life.
gosh.
And it wasn't until we were in the emergency room that we discovered he'd been being physically bullied for 3 months in school.
Mm,
And had he told one person,
hmm.
that may not have happened.
Mm,
Um, he didn't even feel he could tell us, which is really sad.
yeah.
But what came from that was the real rock bottom, is not only that your child now is so severely depressed, they would rather not live, but to fight back from that space to where he's happy again.
Right. Right.
And then to deal with this bullying issue that there were no witnesses for.
Mm,
So that was another whole layer of heartache and frustration.
right.
He did inpatient, he did outpatient, but what 11-year-old boy wants to talk about their feelings back in 2007?
Right.
Because we never taught them to really talk about their feelings in that generation.
Hmm.
Now kids in school talk about all their feelings, which is phenomenal. But that was pretty rough. And the therapist just said, I'm not really making any headway,
Mm.
but I really think you should think about getting him a dog.
Wow.
So there's the gold nugget.
That's amazing.
And at that point, my perfectionism had gotten better, but the thought of dog hair in my home was that was something I had to think about. But what was interesting is the way I felt when he said it. I
Mm.
almost felt like it was God sending me this message.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 weeks later, friends of ours had puppies, and we got to meet them at 6 hours old.
Oh, wow. So little.
So little. The kids went without me on their bikes. At this point, they were fourth, sixth, and eighth grade, a girl and two boys. And oh my gosh, when they came home, we were kind of used to being in a state of sadness in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came home, they just were just bright. And, it was like the first glint of a sparkle in our son's eyes shone again.
Mm. Mm.
And I thought, huh, what's that? Okay, I'll make lunch. We'll go to see the puppies. Okay. And that family allowed us to visit every day.
Wow.
And I can't tell you what that did for our mood. Just to hold these puppies and just to feel that unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And that just changed everything for us. Not to say it was easy to get my husband to agree to bring it home. Um, because if you can, he was working full time. He was finishing a college degree, and he
Mm.
had a wife and a son that were sick,
Yeah,
two other kids that were struggling with everything.
right.
And you want to bring a dog into this situation? And, he knows my personality and he knows how my cleanliness, so,
Sure.
it took a few weeks and I just finally, I told the kids, I've got a plan. You and I, we're going to do all the work and we're going to make that deal. And for 5 years, we held true to that deal that we would take care of the dog and do everything it needed.
Wow.
And I said, God is telling me that this is something we have to consider, that this is our future. And when
Mm.
I talk about how many tools do you have in your mental health toolbox?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that time, I had some self-care, I had therapy, all these things, but I didn't have that pet in that toolbox yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband is like, well, how can I say no to God? I mean, really?
Smart man.
Yeah. And he's kind of sassy that way. So, and within probably, I'd say a month, that puppy we were wrapped around, even
Uh-huh.
he was. And it was quite noticeable that we all five had anxiety that had never been addressed.
Yeah.
And so we rebuilt our lives around this just bundle of love that took our mind off of our problems or at least comforted us if we were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And she became really our angel, and her name was Lily Ray of Hope.
Oh.
Because when I was in the depths of the darkest part of my depression, the word hope was everywhere around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's God's way of saying, if you have hope, you have a future.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's super powerful.
Yeah. And so we went along, and, the teenage years were not easy
Mm-hmm.
at all for our son, for the other two kids. Um, everybody wants to be normal.
Sure.
I don't want to have to take meds. No one else takes meds. I want to be normal. Well, really, what is normal?
Yeah. It's a myth.
It is a myth.
Yeah.
So 5 years after Lily came home, at Christmas time, my husband says, what do you want for Christmas? And on a text, it's a puppy. Yep, he brought home his own dog.
Okay.
So the
Progress.
deal was off. The deal was off. So
Yeah.
we had Lily and Oliver, and they were our heart. You know, they healed our hearts.
Yeah.
Um, each had different personalities. Lily came into our family, and she actually took on our anxiety.
Mm.
So she ended up having to go on Prozac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oliver came into our family where we laughed more and we were silly more. So he was comic relief.
That's great.
Uh, yeah, but all of that time I knew I was going to share our story somehow and break down that stigma
Yeah.
of here we look like we had it all together. I was active in all the kids' schools and in church and everything and worked part-time, but you would never know it because I volunteered and from the outside looking in, we had it all,
Sure. Yeah.
but it was masking.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like that was why God asked me to do this because people still can't believe that I was struggling all those years that know me.
Sure.
Yeah, and we got to break down that barrier.
Absolutely. I think that I mean, it truly is an epidemic. Our church, back in 2019 was coming up with a new vision, and the Lord dropped the vision of reducing loneliness, anxiety, and addiction by having meaningful conversations where people experience Christ through us. And that's been our vision since 2019. And at that point, we didn't know that COVID was happening. And we all know what happened in homes
Wow.
during COVID.
Oh, yes.
And so I think that it's just so pervasive. And I can truthfully say that I had the realization during 2020, kind of at the height of all of that, that I think I had noticeable anxiety for the very first time in my entire life.
And I think a lot of people did that had never experienced that before.
Yeah,
And I always say the beauty of COVID is that now we can talk about mental health
absolutely.
in everyday conversation. My
Absolutely.
girlfriend and one of our board members says, Amy, you're going to change it so we can talk about mental health, just like saying, I don't feel good. With a cold today, or
Yeah,
I had a hard time getting out of bed this morning with my depression.
yeah, yeah. That's
And
beautiful.
thank you. And, when I look back on the timing of all of this, it was all predestined by God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so I knew I was going to share our story, but how was I going to do that? And how would I reach out to the masses as
Hmm.
promoting myself as a speaker? But really, what does that look like? That's a
Hmm.
lot. Um, and so the day that Lily passed away, she was 12 years old, and her death is a beauty in its own. But I got a lot of messages from her leading up to her death, where it was, one of the most poignant ones was, so Lily's talking to me, that I'm Jesus.
Hmm.
I am being Jesus to you. I want you to love yourself unconditionally. And you have learned to do that, these 12 years, and it all made sense to me.
Hmm. That's
Yeah, and I
beautiful.
always felt she was an angel. She
Yeah.
picked me. Uh, Yep. And so the day she passed, I took a nap on our porch, our favorite spot, and I woke up having had a vision of my future. And Lily and Oliver were black labs, and I had a vision of a golden retriever.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, maybe that's my conversation starter. Maybe I'm going to train Willow to be a therapy dog. And that when people say, oh, is this yep, her job is to talk about mental health. And that would be the conversation starter. So that was what I started off on that journey. And I worked in a healthcare system, so I had brought my idea to the hospital, and they were going to let me start a pilot program in the outpatient area where the patients that were inpatient finally go home,
Mm-hmm.
and every day they come back for outpatient treatment to re-entry into their lives. And I wanted
Yeah.
a person that has had mental illness with a dog present so they can see that there's hope. I
That's
was
awesome.
there. I understand what you're feeling. I know it's dark, but there is hope. And so that was the plan. And COVID hit.
Right.
So I got Willow. I shared my idea with my friend in December of 2019, 6 months after Lily passed. And within 2 weeks, I was gifted a puppy.
Wow.
I was gifted Willow.
Oh, sweet baby.
Yeah. So there's that golden retriever in my vision.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So a woman had two pups left from a litter. She was going to keep one, and she donated one to my friend's nonprofit that helps with emotional support animals.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave her to me.
That's awesome.
And the pup that they kept, her name was Lily.
Oh, wow.
Well, there were many signs that Willow was meant to be mine.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
incredible. That's incredible.
yeah.
So, how did you get into going into schools? Like, tell me how that evolved.
Yeah, so it was very unique. My kids had all been grown and gone at this point, so we were kind of out of the district again,
Sure. Yeah.
watching from a distance. And during COVID, my therapy dog class with Willow was on Zoom.
Mm,
Doesn't work well on
no,
Zoom.
not the same.
No. Well, in that class was the principal at the school 2 blocks from my house. I had never met him. He was new.
Okay.
And he got a COVID puppy and started bringing her into school.
Wow.
So he was on my therapy dog class with me. We connected, and there was my in back into the school district.
Absolutely. That's incredible. Wow. That is God ordained if I've ever heard anything.
Very much so, because that principal, I think he had been there about 8 years, but our kids weren't there, and I'd always heard about him, but had never met him.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, so I would say 6 months later, he arranged a meeting with the superintendent of our school district here. And for 45 minutes, we laid out the idea of what dogs could do in the schools,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't really have a program in place yet. So it was kind
Sure.
of like, sure, come on in and, find what works best and
Mhm.
have at it. Please do. And uh, I ended up back in the middle school where our son had been bullied.
Wow.
I had no intention of sharing his story because I didn't know if I had the right to share that. I'm not an educator. I'm just a caring mom and community member.
Mm-hmm.
And I am waiting for the kids to come in for the first day in the middle school, and we did groups. I was telling the media specialist, I said, well, you understand why I'm doing this. You remember our story, correct? And she said, I don't.
Mm.
She said, I knew something was going on with your family. So there's the stigma, keeping it quiet,
Yep.
not letting people know.
Yep.
And without 5 minutes notice, she said, Amy, you have to share this story with the kids.
Wow.
And I said, do I have the right to? I said, can they hear words like anxiety, depression, attempted suicide, and bullying? And
Mm-hmm.
she said, Amy, they're living this.
Yeah.
So it was very God ordained because I had no time to prepare.
Mm.
So as I'm walking over to this group of 20 kids, I'm like, God, give me the right words. Tell me what to say because and what it did is it created this calm environment.
Mm.
Willow is very calm. And so a lot of times she'll fall asleep from the petting.
Mm-hmm.
So it just created this non-judgment zone. where anyone could share anything they needed to and no one would judge them.
Wow.
So I kind of set some guidelines and some rules. Always had a staff member present. I can't tell you the number of kids that started sharing a lot of things that they'd never told anyone before.
I bet.
And the number of kids we were able to take from that group to the student center was,
Wow.
I've lost count of how many kids we've helped.
That's
Um,
incredible.
so honestly, I don't know if you can hear my dogs are barking. Um, anyway, I'm gonna try to ignore them. And it just created itself. This week started calling, well, I guess this is the pup pilot program.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Kids were saying, even if I can't get a puppy pass to see Willow, just knowing she's in the building, I feel better today.
Oh, wow.
The
Wow.
rate of absenteeism on Wednesdays with Willow would show that was the best day for attendance.
That is incredible.
Uh, yeah.
That's incredible. And can we just talk about a puppy pass? I mean, who doesn't want a puppy pass? Come
Isn't
on.
that the truth? We have darling puppy passes, everything. And here's our therapy dog do's and don'ts written by the dog.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
so we have some really amazing things this started from nothing
Yeah.
and it's just really evolved. So how we started, so after about a year of that, I made this crazy proclamation that every middle school in Minnesota needed a therapy dog.
Okay.
Didn't know there were 440 middle schools, just middle
Oh.
schools. But I'm one of these people where there's a will, there's a way. And if I
Uh-huh.
said it, I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was in about April of 22. And we had our first fundraiser 2 months later and had raised $17,000 in 2 months.
That is absolutely incredible.
And we were only in one school.
Wow.
And I think, with me setting the stage of this is our story,
Mm-hmm.
this is why we do it.
Mm.
I think that is, and it was during COVID. It was right after COVID. People were knowing we needed more, and we don't charge the schools for our services.
That's great.
So that was one of my wishes. And we grew so fast last year, I was afraid we were going to have to shift from that.
Mm-hmm.
But the donations, people are really catching on to what we're doing. And so what we say is we come in as another level of support in a
Mm-hmm.
school. You've already got great things in place, but by creating this environment where when you see an animal, you get that happy oxytocin.
Uh-huh.
And if you have the opportunity then to pet an animal, your pulse and your blood pressure drop,
Mm.
and it creates this calm, comfortable space to share.
Yeah.
And by creating that space and giving kids just someone that's not of authority that they see every day in the school,
Right.
we find they open up more because they're not letting that staff member down or
Mm.
showing that they don't have it all together. And so we go by our first names. A lot of times when I'm out in public now, the kids forget me and they'll say, "Hey, Willow," or they're teenage boys in Target parking lot, and
Uh,
yep, I'm Amy. Yeah, but it's just such a heartwarming thing for these teenage boys to say, "We love what you've done in our school."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
that's how we started.
That
Um,
is absolutely incredible. So, what
Cute.
does the future of You're Not Alone look like?
Oh, the sky's the limit.
Mm.
Because in 2 years' time, we have grown to 46 therapy dog teams. Willow
Wow.
and I are one team in one school. Last year, our goal was 10 more schools, and we got into 23.
That's awesome.
And this year, we're in 42.
Wow.
and we have 30 schools on a waiting list.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we have districts that want a pup in every building. And
Wow.
and what that looks like is either us coming in for 2 hours a week to
Mm-hmm.
keep that continuity,
Mm-hmm.
or it's a social worker, staff member, a principal that has their own dog that we've helped show them how to go through certification. And then
Mm-hmm.
they have, that's called a facility dog.
Mm.
And so more facility dogs, my goal is that every school in America gets a facility dog.
Wow.
Because if you take a child that's dysregulated for 45 minutes, they cannot calm down.
Mm.
When a dog is present, it's 20 minutes.
Wow.
So my wish and my future is to get more therapy teams in schools or facility dogs. Think about how many times I think about as a child, I went to the nurse with what was anxiety symptoms that was never told was anxiety
Mm-hmm.
and just wanted to go home.
Yep.
Where here, gosh, if they'd go to the office, have 5 minutes to maybe rest, 5 minutes to pet the dog, and back to class they go.
Wow. That
And here,
is, oh my goodness. The ramifications of that, not just for the school and for the student, but also for the families that you're impacting.
or
Y-
just, yeah, mom and dad leave work because their child needs to come home and
Yeah.
really is anxiety versus, so, and the way they're teaching social emotional skills in the elementaries now, these kids are going to be the most emotionally in tune ever in our
Mm-hmm.
history.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to catch up the parents now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really.
Generationally, we have, you know, and so for a long time, I thought I was going to be helping women
Mm-hmm.
that had been in my situation.
Mm.
Well, I'm helping the children, which then sometimes the moms will come to an event. I can visit with them. We'll talk, so it's
Yeah.
starting here,
Mm-hmm.
not just, I mean, we're doing prevention, but we're also helping kids that are in crisis,
Mm-hmm.
but then connecting with people that have never been able to talk about, oh my gosh, you mean to tell me all this nervousness I've had is actually anxiety? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I told my board by May, we should have 50 therapy dog teams.
That's amazing.
It's been unreal. And so each one is assigned a school, and um, they get an 8x10 in the office with the dog's name on it. They can get school pictures with a badge, for their dog.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We try to implement them as much as possible into the morale. And so
Mm-hmm.
now this year, I don't have one right with me, but every dog has a little plush mini me
Oh, cute.
with a little "You're Not Alone" bandana that we leave at the school when we're not present in case they're
Oh,
having a
wow.
bad day and they have something tangible.
Yeah.
We have already gone nationwide in our first year.
Okay, that was going to be one of my questions. So it's not just in Minnesota.
No, we're across the border in Hudson at a big district there.
Okay.
We have 4 schools that have a team and 4 that I'm trying to fill there. And Providence, Rhode Island.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that one was a teenage girl, found us on Google, wanted to do something wonderful for an underprivileged school. And she helped connect me to a school, and we got it going.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so I think the people that are listening are wondering how they can get involved. And so what do you need from people? Like what does it look like to expand to a new school for you?
Yep. So what it looks like is, well, first off, a connection to a school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
A lot of times our connection is usually special ed or social worker hears about
Mhm.
us, reaches out, and then approaches their admin or their principal saying, hey, you know what, there's this organization that doesn't charge anything, that has policies and procedures and contract. I mean, that's doing it properly.
Yeah.
What would you think if we could have a meeting with them to find out if this is something our school could look into.
Wow.
Then it's finding a therapy dog team in their area.
Mm-hmm.
I do a Zoom call once a month for anyone that wants to learn what it looks like to be a therapy dog handler. A
Okay.
therapy dog is always your pet,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're the trainer. Some people, it's their son's pet, and both the son and the mom are both handlers with the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So many, you can have a couple people that are certified with your dog. And so we help them figure out, what are they lacking in training
Mm-hmm.
that can get them to this point? Or are you having a puppy? Okay, do this class, and keep on that path.
Mm-hmm.
And there's about 20 things that a dog and a handler have to accomplish together because it's a team
Sure.
in order to be certified by, and there's many national companies that do the certification. We at this time do not certify, but I foresee that probably in the next 2 to 3 years
Okay.
where we're going to have that need.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a real big boost at that. I mean, that's going to be a big expansion at that time.
Yeah.
But, with Facebook, with Zoom, with all these things that can connect me with business owners or training facilities in that community.
Mm-hmm.
So if I find more teams in your community, may I send them to you to get certified? Will you help us do that?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So the problem is not having enough therapy dog teams yet, but
Mm-hmm.
we can help create them to fill that need.
Yeah, that's
And,
great.
prereq number one, does your dog like people? I say,
Right.
are
Yes.
they people-y or not?
Uh-huh.
That's the first one. And it is a wonderful feeling to learn how to be a team with your dog
Mm-hmm.
and not be domineering and demanding, but a mutual respect is
Mm.
to train a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Willow has to know that if I notice she's starting to show some, cues of needing to get out of the circle, that I take her on a walkabout.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if we feel uncomfortable in a situation and need to step away for a few minutes,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same concept.
Yeah.
If I do that, then she re-enters and we do great. If I avoid it,
Mm.
she shuts down,
Yeah.
just like a lot of us do.
Yeah.
So there's, and I have to trust her that she is going to do what she needs to do to be
Uh-huh.
for, and honestly, it just comes natural because these dogs, all they want to do is love you unconditionally, no
Yeah.
matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Although they can definitely sense kids that have ill intent,
Mm-hmm.
adults,
Yeah.
they, they, dogs don't think, they feel, so they feel energy.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen a few times.
Oh yeah, my dog. All of our dogs, I would say. We've had dogs since my kids were little, and I would say that all of them are very intuitive about people.
Yes, it's
So,
unreal. And
mhm.
so the other thing that we like to teach in the school is that not only kids get the time with the therapy dog, but when you go home at the end of a day and you have a dog or a cat and you've had a horrible day,
Mhm.
what does that dog do? Well, gosh, it just will not leave me alone. Well, there's the reason. The
Mhm.
dog
It knows, yeah.
wants, yep. So I want you to sit on the floor. I want you to sit on the couch. Let that dog care for you, whether it's climbing
Yes.
on your lap and having that weight. So we're educating the kids that they need to utilize their animals in this way as well.
Oh, that's great. That's super great. So, if somebody's been listening to this and they want to get involved, I have a couple of like super practical questions.
Okay,
Number one, if I am a person that's listening who has thought about having my animal certified as a emotional support animal, how like what is the step that we would take to become a team for
perfect.
you?
So you're going to find quite a few things on our website that will
Okay.
help you get in touch with us.
Okay.
So
Great.
if you have a dog and you're interested in learning, you would go out to our website and you would click on Start a Team.
Okay.
And then it would give you a drop down. Are you certified or not yet certified?
Okay.
Those people would be click on not yet certified, and then it's just going to ask you your name, your address, where you live. Tell us about your dog. Or are you looking to get a dog?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us kind of, can your dog handle loud noises?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any concerns that, that they wouldn't do well in a school setting, but maybe do better in a nursing home setting?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just asking all those questions, and then we reach back out to you and connect.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep,
So if people think, oh my gosh, this program needs to be in the schools, in my kid's school or my grandchild's school or the schools in our community, I'm assuming that there's some place on your website that they can contact or give you the contact of administration. Is that how that would work?
yep. So there's another drop down that says for schools. They could fill out information about the school.
Okay,
Otherwise, just do the general contact us. It goes
okay,
right to me in my email.
great.
Tell us, where you live, what you're looking for, and yeah,
That's fantastic.
get
And then
back.
last question,
Yes.
if someone just wants to donate,
Oh, bless your
I'm
heart.
I'm assuming that there's a place on your website that people can just donate to You're
There
Not Alone
is.
so that they can make a difference.
Yep, another drop down. I think it's about us. Go down to shop, donate or shop. We have a
Okay.
merchandise store. We have some puppy apparel.
Oh, that's amazing.
And if you can see, there's a semicolon in our puppy's face for
Oh,
mental health.
that's awesome.
So I can explain that if time, but yeah, go on out there and that'll give you either how you can donate on Venmo, PayPal. Uh,
Okay,
If you would
great.
rather send a check, do a contact me kind of thing, and I'll send you my mailing address for You're Not Alone.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm going to have all of those links in the show notes for you guys. You, if this has touched your heart in any way, I really would love for you guys to at least go to the website and see what You're Not Alone does. I promise you, if you're a human, it it will it will put you in your feels. I know that it did me, and I've been told that I don't have feels very often. And so
All
I
right.
it's what you're doing is incredible. I'm so thankful that you said yes to coming on Her Faith at Work today to share your mission and your vision for the future and how you can utilize these sweet, sweet babies, these fur babies that we have to have a true effect on mental health of not just the kids, but the schools and the families that are surrounding that. And so just Amy, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And if I can just say, you can take anything that has been horrible in your past and you can make it into something pretty beautiful. If you just
Mm,
listen to what God is asking you to do.
mm. I think that's a great way to end the show. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If the Lord put someone on your heart that you think needs to hear this message today, will you just smash that share button? And if you haven't already followed the show, I would love for you to do that. Super extra points if you hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That helps the algorithm pick us up and drop us right in the AirPods of people that need to hear what the Lord is saying to them today. I hope you'll come back for the next episode of Her Faith at Work. The podcast comes out every Wednesday. And if you look down in the show notes, I've even got a couple of free downloads for you that I think you will really enjoy. With that, have a great week. See you next time.